In today's video, I want to share with you the top 10 mistakes that brand new car cleaning companies make when they jump into this business completely blindfolded. So if you don't know what you're doing, you don't really know where to begin, then this video could save you from making a ton of mistakes. So without further ado, let's kick it off with number one. In at number one, it's not doing enough research on the products that you are going to be using on the cars. Now, there are so many different types of wheel cleaners out there. You've got wheel acid, you've got non-acid, you've got fallout removers, you've got fallout removers with wheel cleaners. There's so many different types out there. You've got to know which is not only best for your types of cars that you're going to be working on, but you need to work out what's going to be available within your budget, because there's so many different price structures that you're going to come along down the line as you go through this business. You might start cheap and work your way up, and if you're going to be doing expensive cars, you don't want to be using cheap products, and vice versa. You don't want to be using expensive products on cheap cars. So it's really important that you do your research before you even get started. Another thing you need to work out is what type of shampoo are you going to be using. Some have got gloss enhancers, so they're going to be no good on matte finish paintwork. You've got pH neutral, which are going to be the best all-rounders, but then you've got heavy duty ones if you're going to be cleaning ghastly cars. There's so many different types out there, so it's not just wheel cleaners. There are 1,000,001 different products, and you have to know what you're going to be using on a car. You can't just buy something blindfolded and think, yeah, that's going to be fine for all cars, because it isn't. So you need to read the labels thoroughly, but honestly, do your research. In at number two, it's a pretty important one, and it's not being prepared for the job you're going to. Now, you've got to ask yourself, I'm going to get here at Mrs. Jones's house. Is she going to have enough space for me to clean the car? What about the outside tap? If I don't have a water tank, will I be able to fill up? Can I fill up using the hose length that I got, or do I have to bring extra length? What about extension leads? Have I got enough cable length to reach from the garage to where the car is? There's so many different factors and other things you need to consider. Will I be out in the road? If I'm going to be on a driveway, is there going to be enough space? Do I need to sort of dial back on some of the stuff I'm carrying so I can sort of get the van in and make sure that I've got enough space to work around the car? These are all important questions you have to ask a client before you even get there, and I can't stress that enough. In at number three, make sure you know what interior you're going to be cleaning before you even get there to the job. Is this car going to have leather seats, Alcantara? Is it going to be fabric? Is it stained? What's the interior like in terms of how dirty it is? Is it a VW or is it a Bentley? What is the quality of the interior that you are going to be working on? Because every car is completely different. If someone rings me up saying, I got a Peugeot, can you do an interior cleaner? I'm going to be like, it's going to take me a bit longer because it's not a good interior. Whereas if someone calls who says, I've got a Bentley, you'll be like, okay, I've got a rough idea that it doesn't matter how bad this is good quality fabric to work with. If I shampoo the carpets, I know this is going to be easy, and I know I can speed things up, so it might even allow me a chance to drop the price back just to secure the clean. These, again, are really important things that you have to ask a client before you even get there. So make sure you know what you're going to be cleaning so you're prepared with the right products and the right chemicals. In at number four, not knowing your target audience. Now, this is quite an interesting one because people just assume that car cleaners are just going to cover all genres, whether it's horse boxes, buses, motorbikes, vans, normal cars, family cars, supercars. There's so many different things. I think you need to find your niche, and you need to sort of just home in on that. If you want to be someone who works on just luxury cars, believe me, that's the best one if you want to make money. Then that's the route you need to go down. If you're going to be doing bargain basement cars, you've got to be prepared for the following. That A, the cars are going to be absolutely disgusting, and B, they might take a heck of a lot longer than your luxury cars because they're not going to be maintenance cleans. These are going to be deep cleans, whereas the people with the luxury cars love to enjoy getting their cars cleaned on a regular basis. So try and find out which niche you're going to go down before you even decide, because honestly, when you have the best intentions of trying to do every different type of vehicle, like your vans and your minibuses and bikes and whatever, you have to carry so much more stuff. If I'm cleaning luxury cars and then someone says to me, right, come and clean 5 tractors today, I don't really want to muck up all my equipment. I don't want to go to a manky farm where it's going to be covered in mud, and then the following day I've then got to go and clean a Rolls Royce. Everything's got to be cleaned up. I've got to have 2 buckets for different things, so I've got to separate all my equipment. So I'm going to have cleaning equipment for vans and tractors and God knows what, and then I'm going to have other stuff for luxury cars as well. So pick your niche wisely. Number 5 is a game changer, and it's not charging enough money. Now, if you are a big softie, then this is not the right business for you, because if you keep your prices too low, you are going to get very demotivated and you're going to fall flat very quickly. So what I mean by that is, if you say to a client, I'm going to clean your car for say £20, and you're doing it and it's a few hours later and you're like, I'm not getting anything out of this, then you have made the mistake. You need to try and keep yourself pretty tall, because honestly, people want to try and knock you down for as much as possible these days, and I can understand where they're coming from. We're living in a world where everything's costing more money. We're trying to cut back, but we still want these things done. This is something you are going to have to deal with on a regular basis, so make sure that you don't sort of cave in, because as soon as you sort of show any weakness to a client and say, yeah, all right, go on, I'll do you a discount if we have two, then they're going to find a way that they can leech onto you and knock you down and down and down until they've got you where they want you, where they get a good service for very little money. And then you could still do the job, and then they'll be like, oh, there's a couple of tar spots, can you go and do that? Or can you go and do these little bits? And it soon adds up. If you do that same car over the year, doing extra little bits here and there, you're doing a lot of work for not a lot of extra money. So make sure you know exactly what you're worth. In at number 6, it's having a fixed price list. The biggest mistake you can make is agreeing to a price over the phone when you haven't even seen the car. It does make sense when you say to a client, look, send me over a couple of WhatsApp pictures and I'll give you a rough estimate based on that. And you've always got your price guides on your website, and say, look, it can fluctuate between higher or lower in value depending on how bad the car is. If it's not that bad, it might come down a little bit, but you need to allocate that good sort of £20 buffer on either side, so you know that you are going to make a fair bit of money if the car isn't too bad. So you need to make sure that you say to them, and that they understand. It's your job to educate the client as well. They need to know what they're getting from you could fluctuate depending on how bad that car is. So don't have a fixed price, because if you get there and it's not what it seems, or it doesn't look too bad in the picture, you're left there doing the car. You can either A, go home and get a bad reputation, or B, ride it out for very little money and come home demotivated, and that's the last thing you want to do. In at number 7, it's taking on too much work, and we all have the best intentions of filling up our diary because we just want to be rich and successful and happy, but unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. You can't cram in so much work. If you're a one-man band, there's no point in doing 5 cars sort of half-assed. It's better to do 4 cars to a really high standard and just keep things under control. When you take too much work on, you've got too much going through your mind, it's a real stressful thing on the mind and the body, and it does tire you out. And I hate to be negative, but that's the truth. So make sure you sort of take a bit of time out for yourself along the way. So I even take a bit of time out in the week as well. I just give myself like half a day off just to sort of recharge the batteries, just so I know where I'm going to be for the next few days. So just don't take on too much work too quickly thinking you're going to make loads of money, because in fact it's going to have the opposite effect. In at number 8, it's not practicing enough on your own cars or your friends' cars. If you're just going to jump into this business, start charging these prices without actually knowing how to clean a car, then you are running some serious risks, especially if you don't have insurance. I imagine that if you are starting your car cleaning business, you're at least going to have a car. You're not going to be doing it on a pedal bike, although some people do. But you need to practice these different methods. You need to see, okay, what's it like cleaning a 4x4? What's it like cleaning a supercar? The principle's pretty much the same, but there are different ways that you approach for cleaning them, for example. So you need to make sure that you know how to deal with these cars. I wouldn't just jump in and say, right, I'm going to start a car cleaning business tomorrow. I'm going to go out and not do any research on how to actually clean the car without any training or getting a little bit of work experience from a garage. I know I always preach about don't work in a garage because they don't pay well and car dealers are just a nightmare to deal with. But sometimes you have to learn from some of the skilled valeters who are there. And believe me, you can find a few hidden gems. So give yourself time to practice before you jump in on the real stuff. It's not going to take you forever to learn these things. If you're dedicated and you want to get this right, it's not going to take you a massive amount of time. You'll pick it up pretty quickly. I can guarantee that. In at number 9, it is doing ridiculous discounts for first-time users. The last thing you should be doing is saying to somebody, as it's your first time, we're going to be doing it at 50% off. We're going to give you a mega discount in the hope that they're going to use you again, because the second they do that, you know they're never going to use you again. It's so highly unlikely. If there's someone who's going to jump on that deal and say to you, right, I want it 50% off, they ain't going to use you again because they haven't got the money to use you again, and that's the honest truth about it. But then you might get another scenario, and this happened to me. Because see, I've made this mistake. I've been there and done that. And I did cheap valets, and then they're like, okay, look, I'll tell you what, give me half price again, and I'll pass your name on to my cousin who knows somebody else, who knows somebody else, who knows Michael Jackson. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, go on then. Before you know it, after week 5 of turning up, you still earn no money because they're like, oh, we pass you on, we pass you on. Go on, you're doing us a favour, you know, we look after you and all that. They never do. Honestly, it's a complete nightmare, so keep your prices as high as possible and don't cave into that peer pressure. My last bit of advice is probably one of the most important ones, and that's getting the money up front. If it's a first-time customer, say to them straight away on the phone, we will not be leaving this property until we get the money. Make sure you're very clear about what types of payments you are going to accept. If they go, can I pay by credit card? Well, you haven't got a card machine, have you? Like, you should have sorted that out with them beforehand. You should have said, look, we don't have a card machine. Do you do bank transfers? Great, do that, or do cash, or do a check. Make sure you know who they are. They could have a terrible track record, and it has happened to me. I would say that's one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made, and it's taking on new clients and not getting the money. And they know that if you do want to get the money, you're going to have to jump through several hoops, that is, to get through their accountants, to get through all the system and management, just to get this little bit of money, and it would take 30 days of waiting. A lot of people don't pay you up front, and unless they're people that you know pretty well, sometimes it just ain't worth doing it. Then that's my honest opinion. It's not worth taking on a new client if you know they're going to be an absolute ball ache. Be very clear, be very precise of your intentions, that you are going to get that money when you finish the card, because if you don't, you're going to get proper stress doing this business, and you don't want to become a bitter, nasty person. And I've had it many times where I've literally got to the point where I feel like I could threaten someone just because I want my money. And it's not about the figure of the money, it's just a principle involved, that people see you for somebody who's bottom of the food chain, that you're worth absolutely nothing. And I hate those people. And the majority of them, I have to say, are car dealers. They are the worst people for this. If you want to work at a car dealership, if you don't know who the person is and you don't do a little bit of background check about who they are and what they're about, don't do it at all. Don't just jump in and say, right, I'm going to work here for a month and expect to be paid. It just ain't going to happen. Oh my God, I've lost count how many I've dealt with. I think that was the biggest mistake. The only positive from working at a dealership when I was pretty much a kid was learning off some of the skilled valeters and detailers. But even them, like, there was a guy who I knew called Michael. He had been there 15 years now. I think it was over 15 years. He was getting on a bit. And he had probably had best intentions of starting off just doing little bits here and there. But then they gradually grinded down his soul to the point he was an empty man. He was an empty man cleaning cars. And they got him. They owned him. And it was sick. And I said to him, mate, quit your job. Like, what are you doing working for these people? You know they're treating you like rubbish. Seriously, you got to look after yourself, because there's a lot of nasty people who are out there to get you. I hope some of these tips are going to be useful for you, and I hope you can take everything I said on board. Just be careful, stay safe out there, but more importantly, just look after yourself and get what you're worth. And stay tuned, because I've got a brand new video coming next week. I'll see you later. Bye, 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 bye.